We're going to dive right in again. This one, we're going to do the power of documentation transforming your development practices. And we're going to see what AI has to say about that. I wonder if I can do this. Try to get this so it's a little easier for me to read.
The
Answer
more
it.
there you go.
Then I'm too short. So I got to get my height right and all that kind of good stuff. See, these are the challenges of videos over podcasts. I never worried about what I look like in the podcast. As you can tell, I don't really worry about that now either.
Okay, you moved. Your audio dropped a little.
Audio drop. Is that better?
One more time.
Let's try that. Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Is that still good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. We'll see how that works. And we're going to do our little 3, 2, 1. Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing our season of Developreneur, building better developers with AI. Yes, this time we're going through a couple seasons back. We're actually taking the same topics, essentially the title from those episodes. We're throwing it into AI, ChatGPT specifically, and we're going to see where it takes us. And so far, it's been pretty darn good. So we're going to see again what happens today. First, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Rob Broadhead. I am one of the founders of Developreneur, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you work your way through your technology trash drawer, junk drawer, basically. We sit down with you, talk about your business, where you want to go, and then we use our experience in a lot of different lines of business, different areas to figure out what is the best solution to you. How do we craft a technology roadmap for your business? And how do we take what you have and find ways to do it better through simplification, integration, automation, innovation? We find ways to take what you do and do it better, do it faster, so that now you can work on your customers and making them happy instead of working in your business all the time. Good thing, bad thing. Let's see. Good thing is I've got a son that is moving off to South Carolina, and we just took a weekend with them to check the area out. And it was amazing how many places, every time we went somewhere, it was somewhere cool. We found the first night we were there, we'd driven all day. We said, we just want to go hang out somewhere. We found a place that had darts, pool, shuffleboard, some video games, the virtual golf. It was an Irish pub that was basically called the Irish pub or something like that. So you sort of you get a pretty good picture of what it is. Great time. Bad thing would be through all of this, one of the days happens to be the one day out of a month that they do their downtown is just festival day. And it was also, I think, 478 degrees out, something pretty close, plus or minus 1 or 2 degrees. So it was really hot. We were just trying to grab something to eat, and it was just full of vendors that were not food. We ended up walking, literally, it was almost a mile. It was a really long road, lots and lots of stuff. We finally found somewhere, but that was miserable. That was one of those things, the heat alone, I think, took it out of us for the rest of the day and maybe half of the next one. Hopefully, I have not taken too much out of Michael and he still has the energy to introduce himself. Go for it, sir.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Meloche. I'm one of the co-founders of Developreneur, Building Better Developers. I'm also the owner and founder of Envision QA, where we help startups and growing companies improve their software quality through a series like test planning, automation, and release support. Why do companies work with us? Because buggy software costs time, money, and customer trust. We make sure products are reliable before launch, helping teams move faster and avoid costly mistakes. If you're building something great and want it to run smoothly from day one, visit envisionqa.com or shoot us an email and let us know what you need. Let's see, good things and bad things. Good things. Projects are going well, making headway on a lot of things, kind of got over some blockers. Bad thing, running a little behind on some of these projects and because of those blockers. So it was kind of a two-sided coin. The bad thing essentially led to the good thing. Hopefully we'll continue that progress.
So talking about good things is we have AI helping us out this time. So this episode, we're going to go with the title was The Power of Documentation, Transforming Your Development Practices. And this one just comes right into it. Doesn't do, didn't give me anything like, hey, that's a great idea or anything like that. It just comes in. Episode objective: help developers and technical leaders understand why documentation matters, where it adds the most value, and how to build a documentation culture that scales with software and teams. So let's get right into the key talking points. I think this goes back. Oh, no, it's not 10 points again. So let's see where we go. First one: why developers hate and need documentation. Bullet point 1: common reasons developers avoid it: perceived low ROI, time consuming. Real world consequences, second bullet: real world consequences of poor or missing docs, onboarding issues, tech debt, misunderstood code bases. So start right there: why developers hate and need documentation. I think I want to address the first one for common reasons developers avoid it: perceived low ROI and time consuming. Now, it's sort of funny that when we are doing episodes on AI, I'm going to start right out of the bat and say, you can use AI to help document your code and save a lot of time in that. Now, there are some approaches, and this gets into the perceived low ROI. It's you're like, well, okay, fine, I'm writing some comments. How's that going to help? Well, 6 months from now, you is going to say that helps a lot, because otherwise I would have had no idea what this code's doing, particularly if you've got magic numbers or you've got very complex logic, or you've got something in there that is to specifically address a bug that's maybe a data issue or something that could easily be not apparent to somebody looking at the code. That could be you, or it could be somebody else. Now, that will save you potentially a lot of time. I will argue, though, much like, and we've talked about test-driven development, there is, we'll call it comment-driven development, or something on comment-driven design, maybe, is where instead of just diving into your code and just writing your, boom, I'm flinging code, actually walk through, just like you were probably taught in college or wherever you went to school, pseudocode. Write some comments down to say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Funny enough, if you have AI generate code for you, a lot of times that is what it's going to do as well, is it's going to take essentially whatever you ask it to do, and it's going to turn it into some like comment bullet points of some sort, and then put code around it. The nice thing about this, and why the ROI is actually very high on this, is I think, at least for myself, and I have a feeling that others of you are like this, when we slow ourselves down and actually walk through the process that we are about to code, there is some design that goes on to it, because we're thinking about the solution, but now we're not being distracted by the code itself. We're thinking about like, what are the actual tasks we need? This is very important regardless of what you're doing. If you're solving a problem, one of the things when you get to the solution is you need to say, okay, what are the steps to solve the problem? And then how do I execute on each step? And so I think when you do things like that, one, it actually saves you time, because now it's not just self-documenting code from a comments point of view, but also you could take that, lift it out, and turn it into design docs, or pull it from design docs and use that as essentially your starting point, saving you a lot of time to generate it in the first place, and then also giving you even higher ROI, because now you have some ways potentially to very directly tie your code back to, heaven forbid, a requirement or something like that. I'm going to stop there because I know there's a lot of ways we can go, and I'm going to toss this over to you and sit back and see where you want to go with it.
So I liked how you started out the discussion on this. I want to kind of segue it just a little bit. So when we talk about like commenting and documenting our code, writing good comments is really good, but also essentially writing code that documents itself. So the naming of your variables, the naming of your methods. If you essentially almost try to code with real language in your code, just reading the code is like reading a paragraph, reading requirements. You don't have to spend the extra time writing additional comments, because the code essentially self-documents itself. So I wanted to touch on that first, because you kind of alluded to that, but didn't quite touch on that directly. Secondly, I like the idea of starting out by putting the documents or requirements in the code, but a lot of times, even in college, or when we teach presentations in some of our classes, pseudocode is one of the best ways to start commenting and documenting your code. You take your requirements, you kind of put bullet points, hey, this is kind of what I wanted to do, and then you start filling in the gaps. Or if you're teaching, you kind of say, okay, here's what I want the program to do. So you kind of put like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you start putting in, what the steps are. And then underneath that, you start pseudocoding, or you start kind of filling in the gaps of what it needs to be. And then at the end of it, one or two things can happen. One, if you're doing test-driven development, you've just written your test to then flip over to your code. So you have a test to essentially test your code. So you have the requirement test there. Secondly, code with documents in mind. I liked how you talked about that with the requirements. So with the pseudocode idea, the teaching idea, one thing before I ever write code is I look at the requirements. I try to understand the requirements. And now in today's world of AI, you can kind of write out your thoughts on those requirements into a chatbot and say, okay, here is what I'm thinking about doing. Here are the requirements for this application I want. Give me some pseudocode, give me some code, or better yet, and I found this to be extremely helpful, explain to me what these requirements are trying to do. And if I've covered all the bases for what the why is, what is it that I'm trying to solve? And what's interesting is not always, but every now and then, you're going to get some very good feedback, very good documentation that you could almost literally take that documentation, then drop it into a file, and then start filling in the blanks, start writing your code to the documentation. Sometimes it could even find those edge cases that you missed that are going to bite you later. So this is just one of those ways where documenting early or using documentation to write code can help you write better code.
I think it all goes back to that ROI. I think that there is definitely a lot of value in doing it. And it does. It's as just to sort of, not to beat a dead horse, but as Michael suggests, it's like, it really is like when you were taught to write essays, you started with an outline and then like, what are your key points and then the bullet points, and then you would flesh that out and turn it into your essay. It's the same thing that we're doing with code effectively. Now, moving on, documentation is a development superpower. 3 bullets here. How good docs reduce bugs, improve velocity, and make maintenance easier. Second one, documentation is a force multiplier, onboarding, APIs, DevOps, testing. And third one, the hidden cost of not documenting. Now, I'm going to go with, because this is one that has been near and dear to my heart for a while, is APIs. Particularly because the API documentation tools that are out there are, to me, invaluable as part of developing APIs. When you're using Swagger or things like that, or tools like Postman, which is an awesome way to generate code in a lot of different languages to call whatever your API endpoint is, these things allow you to go through and very quickly flesh out essentially, some key things. Now, APIs, of course, they are, you've got your endpoints, which is always the starting point there of like, here's all the things we need to do. Here's all of the accesses or how we need to do them. And then from there, though, again, it's very much an outline and a fleshing it out. So what is this? What does it take? What is the signature? What is the inputs? What are the outputs? What are some of the exceptions? What are the errors? What does a successful execution of this look like? What does it return? Things like that are, a lot of times they're going to be part of what your code generator or what your tool is going to use. But it's also some stuff that now it's starting to blur the line a little bit, because you can use these same generators that say, okay, here's here's my WSDL, and go generate a client. And now suddenly you've got a client and it's got documentation around it, because it's the most basic stuff. It's what are the signatures, what are the outputs and things like that. But it's a starting point. And then to me, it almost begs you to just add a paragraph, or not even a paragraph, a sentence here and there to just say, this is what this value is. This is what this variable is. This is what I'm expecting. And it's one of those things, it's like, here, this is almost all you need. Please spend an extra couple of minutes and make it look awesome. So the tools are out there, and it really is a force multiplier, especially when you start using like Swagger and things like that, where they use that to generate test suites, basically a test bed. So you can go in and you can say, okay, I just wrote all this stuff. Let me go in and without having to write a bunch of client code or anything like that, I can go right into the documentation and it has the things it needs to go actually test the code I wrote. Heaven forbid we use the T word, but I do see it as that. I think this is something that it comes back to what we said before. You're going to design better. You're more tied to requirements. You're thinking about your why, and then you're actually implementing stuff and able to test it. So again, lots of places we can go. So where do you want to go on this one?
So I think I want to do that last one again. Can you read it to me?
The hidden cost of not documenting.
Yes. So there's actually two things with that. So there's a hidden cost to not documenting, but there's also a hidden cost to not maintaining your documentation. So I've been in situations where organizations don't document, and then you have people leave, and then you have people come in, and people can't maintain the existing software. It gets ugly. A lot of times, sometimes it depends on the state of the company or the project that you're on, where sometimes you're very quick to fail. You're trying to get there as fast as you can, get prototypes out there. You just don't take the time to document. That's fine. Sure, I get it. However, you should be applying some type of documentation to your code, either through well-written code, basically the code documents itself, some type of code level comments, Java docs, or some type of comments within the code where you could essentially generate documentation from the code. However, a lot of organizations use things like Confluence or Microsoft Project. They use external tools to document and record all the requirements, but they never get updated through the process of the project. So as the life of the project expands, the code, the tickets, all that changes, the documentation gets stale. So if you are going to do documentation, do it as close to the code level as possible and use tools to extract that documentation from the code to something more manageable and readable for the business. It could be READMEs, it could be Markdown languages, it could be one of the guys I work with now actually has a tool that reads the Markdown from the project and generates Confluence pages and updates them every time they do a release. It goes and flushes and updates all the documentation in Atlassian. So there are multiple ways to do this. It just takes the time, a little bit of planning. And honestly, if you're a coder, you should be writing self-documenting code, or at a minimum, put something in the code to tell you what the method is doing. Naming is important.
A pro tip for this is that something I ran across a company that did this, and I really do like it, is that when they do tickets, part of the ticket, there is a sub ticket basically that is testing and one that is documentation. And you can't actually close your ticket out until you close out the testing and the documentation. Now, the funny thing is there were a lot of tickets that would stay open a long time because people weren't getting their documentation or their tests written out. However, it does work out to be something that gives you that reminder. It's like, oh yeah, I do need to clean this thing up. So that's a little pro tip. We'll jump in real quick on this one. Maybe. Well, there are three types of documentation that matter: code comments versus system level docs, README files, your project's first impression, architecture diagrams and decision records, setup guides, API docs, test strategies, how to deploy checklists, runbooks for ops and incident recovery. I want to just touch on this one real quick, so we don't go too long because we easily could. Your README, I think, is a very important part of any project, is to have whether it's in your GitHub repository or your repository, happen it is, somewhere there should be at the root a README. A lot of times it's a Markdown, especially if you use GitHub by default. And it should walk through, this is what it is. This is how you get started. This is where the code is. This is how you build it. Things like that. Those things all need to be a part of that, because otherwise, trust me, it is a real pain to get code and somebody's like, well, just pull the code from here. And now you really don't. Yeah. I mean, you sort of know if if it's a Python app, maybe you can guess your way through it, or if it's React, or if it's Node, or Java. There's various things that you can do to figure it out. but why figure it out when you could just have it written out? Thoughts?
So the last one you mentioned, the runbooks, that's another one that's very critical and important, because if you don't know how your software gets deployed or what services it's deployed on, you're in trouble. If it goes down, how are you going to bring it back up? How are you going to release new software? And if someone leaves, you don't want that critical information going out the door with the person that leaves. You want to know how to maintain and support your software. So at a minimum, make sure it's either in a README, some type of script, but you have something written somewhere that tells you how to take your software from development to production.
And now we're going to take you from the beginning of the podcast episode to the end of the podcast episode. We are wrapping this one up. I want to thank you so much. We do appreciate you hanging out with us for this while. You can show us your appreciation by shooting us an email at info@developaneur.com. We would love to hear your feedback, plus any suggestions you have for future episodes and things of that nature. If you've got somebody that you would like us to talk to from an interview point of view, we're trying to get some of those still worked out. We're happy to, there's a lot of people out there that we would have no problem talking to. Obviously, they may have problems talking to us because, well, you know us now. That being said, check us out wherever you check out podcasts. If you find somewhere with podcasts you can't find us, let us know. We'll add it in there. Check us out on the Developaneur channel on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff out there. Also, the Developaneur website, there is a lot of stuff there. And we are looking into, as we have for a while, but we are back again, spending a little bit of time looking at maybe some ways that we may adjust some of our material, our content, some things like that. A lot of it is just to make it easier for you. So if you have any preferences or any input on how you would like to see this thing, this huge repository of content that we have presented, love to hear it from you. That being said, I've gone too long, so I'm just going to wrap it up and tell you have a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. Bonus material. Actually, let me do. There was a point, 4 and a 5. So we'll go through these real quick. Transforming your team through documentation, encouraging a writing culture in dev teams, assigning doc responsibilities, not always the junior dev, tools like MkDocs, Sphinx, Notion, GitHub, Wikis, or Confluence, the docs as code approach, keeping documentation version control, documenting for future you, personal developer notes and knowledge capture, Zettelkasten, Obsidian, for example, creating searchable trails of thought for complex solution. So there's wow, that is definitely the bonus material. So I'll let you start. Like, where do you want to go with those?
I was actually going to go with ASCII docs, which I've talked about before. We've done a tutorial on that, and I have lost the source code for that. So apologies. I'll do an updated version soon because it has updated. But given that most of the code repositories use Markdown as kind of their base documentation tool, ASCII docs is probably one of the easiest Markdown languages to learn, but you can actually literally take your notes in Markdown, have the viewer right there, and it just translates it to a web viewer. You can go and make modifications, but it is just one of those kind of cool little tools to use. You get used to writing in Markdown. I know you, like me, we tend to spend more time in Notepad, Notepad++, some type of just editor, and that's where we just live. We put notes, we copy and paste code in there, and we live there. But if you can write in Markdown, a lot of those tools have viewers, so you can literally write your documentation as you're just doing your daily notes. So if you find yourself doing that, look at using some tools like that. And even on top of that, you can do things like Microsoft Note, OneNote, some like Google Note. A lot of those also have Markdown plugins that you can plug into it. So again, use any type of tool, but just start learning a variation of note taking that can be converted to documentation, be it in code or in Notepad.
I think the key there, and that's the bonus, is whatever it, just something that works for you. Whether you get comfortable with Markdown, a lot of people use that. It's very common. If you want to, like, there's so many wiki tools out there. Confluence is a very big one. Atlassian set of tools. Doing something like that is where you can take notes. A lot of tools, like I will save I will have usually a text file open somewhere in my repository, whatever code I'm working on that maybe I'm writing some stuff. I have SQL scripts open all the time I save them out as I'm like running little queries and things like that. So I can go find how did I do that weird query before. Those kinds of things are excellent. And any of these tools like Notion and some of those things that are out there that are becoming better about just trying to capture ideas. It just comes down to whatever the tool is, just find and feel free to, obviously you can play around and just find the thing that works best for you. And that is the one that you need to use.
One last tip. We've talked about all this documentation. We've talked about all these tools. Make sure you go through your tools at the end of the week. And if you have 50 tabs open in Notes, Notepad, whatever, save those off. Back them up, because Notepad and that, well, they save locally. You can still lose them. And 9 out of 10 times, that's something you probably need to keep around forever. So I only mention this because this bit me recently. I accidentally closed a tab that I shouldn't have closed, and I lost my note. But the whole part about documentation is make sure that you do store it, you do save it, you do keep it around somewhere where it can be easily accessible.
Yes, 100%. Yes, make sure that you click the save button. I have had a few of those myself where I forgot to do that, and then I ended up, smacking myself in the head for it. As always, not only now we appreciate you even more than those that listen to the podcast, only because you have to actually see us. But and I know that detracts from the whole content. But any way that you want to reach out to us, feedback on the podcast or actually here, leave us comments, leave us notes. I assume there's ways to like it and stuff like that. I'm not super up on YouTube itself, but anyway, share it out. Let your friends know. Let us know, more importantly, what you think and where we can help you out, because that's really what we're here for, is to help you get better. As always, thank you so much for your time. We will be back doing more with AI. AI. Okay, that doesn't work very well. And I'll try to get better special effects next time around. Have a good one, everybody. Talk to you next time.